Hello everyone, let's keep on doing the facial rig. Today's topic is about the eyelid. So the same process, you want to go from selecting the edge loops. Let's see, this edge loop would be nice. Let me just deselect the two corners. So those are the edges I selected. Let's go to modify and then convert polygon edge to curve. Okay, you know what, I cannot just do that on both of them. Let me deselect the bottom one and do that again. Alright, so I end up with two curves. Remember to delete their history by selecting both and Alt Shift D, otherwise you will get cycling. And then you can try to manipulate the shape a little bit by dragging the vertices around to make it smoother, essentially. So I don't really need that little bump there, so that should be good. Alright, and then you also want to rebuild them to give them even UVs. So curves, rebuild, okay. And then the number of spans, let's use 5 and then apply. Do the same thing for the bottom one. Now they should have even vertices on them. Okay, let's grab both and then Alt Shift D again to delete the history. One more time just to be safe. Now the top one will be named CRV, DRV, upper eyelid. Okay. And then the lower will be CRV, DRV, lower eyelid. Okay, now we have two curves, just like how we have on the eyebrow. And now the next step will be just populating joints on it. And because we have already went over the process of doing that manually, I have a code to do that for you automatically, which is here underneath the create joint along curve too. Okay. Now you can name the joint. So the joint will be JT, left, upper eyelid, bend. Okay, the amount will be 5, and then use create joints. What it does now, it will create 5 joints with group and locator all positioned properly. Okay, and now renamed. And let's delete those. And in class I have showed you a way to change the UI I gave you, right? So if you go to the code, you see everything is underneath one code, and the things we want to change here is we want to have one more field for the user to tap in the radius for the joints they want to create. Maybe also the radius of the locator. Let's do that. Okay, so you want to find out where the UI is. So if you scroll down, this is create joint along curve section UI underline 134. Okay, and then you see the layout is called create joint along curve layout. It's a frame layout. A frame layout is this. Okay, this open and close menu is what frame layout means, and CIL equals true means you can actually open and close it. And then I created a row column layout, meaning you have rows and columns, just like a grade kind of layout. And number of columns is 4. That's why you have 1, 2, 3, 4 to work with. And the first one is joint name, right? And then a text field, a joint amount, and a int field. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Okay, so we can keep adding those things. Let's also add in one more called mc dot joint radius. Oh, sorry, c dot text, and then the label will be joint radius. Okay, let's also put in comma there. Okay, and if you run this code again, you see the new one now have the joint radius over there, and then you can also put in a text field called MC dot. Oh, this time it's gonna be a float field because it's gonna be for way to tap in the radius, and which should be a float number instead of int above. You see that's int here for this one because the amount cannot be a decimal number, right? So let's do that. So float field, and then we want to give it a actually we don't need too much things here, but we can give it a default value, like value equals 1.0, or yeah, 1.0 should be good. And then we want to also refer to the text field I created and put the name to a variable. So let's call this one joint radius float field, okay, equals that. Now if you run it again, you will see the float field being created with a default value of 1, which is this one. Let's do the same thing for the locator. So text, okay, and then the label will equals to this time locator size, okay, and then locator size, it's gonna be also a float field equals MC dot float field, and then value equals 1.0. Now we have the locator size also. Okay, now how can we actually use those values? Because for now they're just there. If you run the code, they do nothing because the programmer doesn't know how to use those values, so they're just there. So let's scroll down and look at the actual code of this create joint. It's going to be all the way down to here, line 324, create joint along curve functions. The create joint function will be the main function there. And then what it does is first make the selected curve and the first selected curve, okay, and store that into a variable. And then we start to figure out the name of the joint, the amount of the joint, and then for every from 0 to the amount of joints, we create every individual joint, okay, and then we group the joint properly, and then we constrain that group to a curve. Okay, so that's what we did. Now first let's look at how we change the joint radius, which is over here. Okay, so we need to know the radius by trace it or query it here. So let's call this one joint radius. Okay, now it will be equals to MC dot float field again, but this time we're querying it. So joint radius float field. Okay, query equals true. So we're querying the joint radius float field, which is this one, and we're querying its value equals true. Okay. Let's also query the size of the locator. Oh, you know what? We don't even have that here. So that's the process of grouping the joints. Let's do that later. But for now, let's define the joint radius. So the joint radius will be queried from the float field, which is here, and then we can actually define the radius of the joint when we are creating it. So the radius will be equals to joint radius. Okay. If you run the code, let's test it before we move on. So if you put in joint radius to 1, let's just type in random names and then create joints. It will gonna create the joints, and they looks like that big, right? Let's delete those ones, and then let's try create a smaller one. So 0.1, it's gonna be 10 times smaller. Let's do that again, and you see the joints are much smaller, right? So now our value actually is doing something. Let me go delete all those ones, and then let's go back to the other one, which is the size of the locator. Now you see the size of the locator was actually underneath. Let's go to the the create joint, you see the joint group will be dealt or be taken care of by this function called group joint hierarchy, and it only takes one variable, which is the name of the joint. So, and the actual function is actually just down here. So the first thing I want to change is I want to change it to read two variables or two arguments. The second argument is locator size. Okay, and then we were creating locator, which is here. Okay, let's also define its size. So the size, let's see which one is it. It actually doesn't have size. It has a position, so we need to actually change its size. Alright, so let's try see how we can do that. If we go there and drag down the local scale, that's the size, so we're setting the attribute to something like that. So let's do that here. It's gonna be underneath the locator here. Before we do anything with it, after creation, we just do set attribute. Okay, now we're setting attribute of the locator name. That's the name we gave it when we were creating here, right? So the name is called locator name, and then we want to manipulate one of the attribute called the local scale x. Let's copy this one. Okay, so we're changing local scale x with the value of the locator size. Okay, let's also give it a default value here. If you give an argument a default value, it will also use the default value if you don't give it any when you're calling this function. So locator size equals 1.0. Okay. We need to do that on all three channels. So locators, local scale x and y and z, they will all be resetted to the local locator size argument that we can pass to this function. So now when we're calling this function here, we need to give it the size. So let's query the size here. So locator size will be equals to empty.float field again, and we're querying this field, and if I remember it correctly, it's called locator size float field. Okay, query equals true, and then value equals true. So we're querying the value now, and also after we have the value, let's just copy this and use it as a variable. Oh, sorry, a argument for our function here. Okay, so locator size will be passed here, and then everything will run smoothly. So let's try that. Now if I go select my curve here, okay, then let's type in joint name. That's gonna be JT left upper eyelid band. Okay, the amount will be 5. The radius, let's make this one 0.2, the other one also 0.2, maybe a little bit bigger, 0.3. Okay, so now if we go create joints, not only the joints become smaller, but also the locator becomes smaller. Okay, so now we have the ability to control the size of the joint and the locator. Okay, now if you're happy with this, you can go File, Save Script to save it, so you can keep that change. But let's move on to the bottom. Eyelid. Okay, let's do the same thing, but this time the naming will be lower eyelid instead. And then create joints. Alright, so we have all those joints created for the eyelid. Let's grab those joints and then select the skin, do skin, add influence, okay, and lock weights, apply. Now if you go, if you go to pen skin weighting, we should be able to pen their weighting now. So let's start doing that. It's gonna take a little while. So I probably gonna fast forward this part. Alright, so that is the weighting for the eyelid. If you look at the weighting I'm having now, they're quite smooth. Okay, circling the eye like that. And one of the things you want to make sure is when you move to the the weight holder of the face, you want it to be having no weight around the eye, which I'm not quite there yet. I can subtract them away, but use subtract with caution, because if you're not careful, if you don't have the majority of the things clean, then you use subtraction, it's gonna go to other joints you don't want them to be. But for now I know it's okay, because when I subtract, I'm pretty sure that the weighting will be distributed to this one and that one and maybe that one proportionally based on the weighting they already have. But let's say none of the joint has any weight on it, then they will be distributed to all those joints with the same weight, and that's going to be a problem because that's not what you want. So you have to be really careful. Subtraction is dangerous in all situations. You have to be pretty sure or understand what you're doing before you actually use it. But anyway, let's move on to the eyelid open and close control. I need a controller there, so let me just go create a cube. Okay, and drag the cube to where I want the upper eyelid controller to be, and duplicate that down for the lower eyelid. Okay, let's name this cube JT upper eyelid band 01. Oh, this band should be good. The bottom one will be JT lower eyelid band. Okay, let's grab those two and then go to the create controller section. Let's use parent. The controller tab will be a circle, and the radius we can make it 2, and then we use parent and then create. What that does is they will create the code will create the controllers for it, but we don't need the cubes anymore, so delete those 2 cubes. Now we have controller properly positioned. Grab those 2 controller and go to the tweak controllers. Let's press start. That will give us the ability to control the first one. Okay, let's just take its shape to make it looks like it's representing the upper eyelid, so something like that. Let's press the next. That will bring us to the next controller to tweak. Okay, so it's just an easy way of tweaking controllers. You just go next and next, next. It will go through all the selection you have before and then allow you to tweak every individual one of them. You of course go previous, next, 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 previous, and then finish. And it will finish and select all the controller again for you. So let me just, I wanted to drag those forward a little bit. Okay, so now we have two controllers. Okay, let's actually do the controls. The controls will be set driving keys on blend shape of the eyelid. So let's select the upper eyelid and then go to the shape editor. And let's start creating one blend shape. Let's call this one the upper eyelid blend shapes. Okay, and then we need a target there. So this target, let's call this one close. Okay, while it's in edit mode, we can now go grab the eyelid vertices and then just drag them down to close the eye. Let's use component mode so it's easier to select the vertex without selecting the joints. I don't really want that weird winkle, but we can use weighting to maybe make it lesser than that. But one of the things about joint base is that you don't have actually full control of the shape you're adding, you're changing. So eventually you need some corrective shapes to make it eventually work better. Okay, and then in the middle, maybe at value 0.5, let's right click on it and give it a in between target. What that does is now you can define the shape here, because right now I want it to be actually not just going up and down but also going through an arc. So that's what I'm doing here. Let's drag the vertex out a little bit to maintain the arc. Alright. So now we have the open close of the eye, upper eye. Actually it's just close. Okay, let's also go to the blend shape again. Let's add another target. This one is gonna be open. Okay, for the open, we just grab the vertices and then drag a big selection and just drag it up, maybe a little bit bigger, and then going in, going up, going in, going up, depending on how far you want to go. I'm intend to push it a bit more than I think it should be, because you never know if the animator needs that kind of exaggeration. Okay, feel free to drag the corner a little bit, because you know they're soft tissues. You're supposed to be able to drag them up. Alright, now we have the open, we have the close. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the lower eyelid. Let's grab that and then create blend shapes. Left, lower eyelid, blend shapes. Okay, at target, this time we're going to do the same thing. So we have open, let's do close first, and then open. So for the close, it's almost the same thing, just drag them up. Okay, maybe I'm dragging it too much, because I don't think you can literally do that, but just in case if that's needed. Alright, I can go out a little bit. Okay. And then close. And then I open actually. So the open one, just drag it down and then in. Oh. So let me drag the corner back a bit. Okay. I think that's a lot of opening already, so probably enough. So now we have open close of the lower eyelid. Let's all turn them off. Of course, you can have a in between there. I would say if it looks okay, then you may not need it in between, you know. If you don't really need to do that detailed, you know, stuff anyways, but just so you know that you can do this if you really need it. So we add an in between there to make the shape better when it's deforming. So it's an arc instead of just a straight line from the beginning to the end. So we have upper and lower blend shapes, 4 of them, open, close. Let's actually use the controller to control them. So grab the controller and let's go to the animation key, set driving key stat, and load our drivers. Load our first driver, which is the upper eyelid. The driven one will be the blend shape, so right click on the blend shape and then select and then load driven. The translation Y will be driving close and open. Let's key them. And drag the controller up and then drag the open up. Okay, let's key it and drag the controller down and then drag up the close. So actually drag it even lower than that. Okay, and then key it. Now we have the controller now be able to control the eye open and close. Alright, nice. So let me zero that out. And then for the lower eyelid, it's the same thing. Driver will be the controller, driven one will be the blend shape. So select the blend shape, load driven. We also have open, close using translation Y, key it. So then drag it up. And then drag the close up, key it, and then drag the controller down and drag the open up and then key it. Okay, so now we have an open and close for the eyelid, for the lower eyelid from the controller. Now grab those 2 blend shapes actually. We need to also manipulate their animation curve, because for now they're quite curvy. They have easy in and easy out. That's not cool. So what we want to do is grab those 2 and make them flat. That way the animator have full control of the timing. Otherwise you will just have one layer of weird easy in and easy out. Doesn't really feel right at all. Okay, just be aware of that. That's sometimes it's a deal breaker, I think. But now we have the open and close of the upper and lower eyelid. Okay. And of course you can start doing other things like the eyelid follow, eyelid collision, like the ones in the previous tutorials on the basic rigging. And there's gonna be sculpt deformer on the 2 curves. Okay, and also there's gonna be the blend shape on the curve to follow the eye when the eye goes left and right. But those things are all something you're familiar with, so I'm not gonna do that here. But there's literally no difference between this way and the old ways. Just this time the blend shape will be on the curve instead for the eyelid follow when you rotate the eyeball. The driven key will be from oh, I think I moved the root joint somehow. Let's zero that out. No, that's not actually correct either. I may need to go back and refer to one of my old rig. You know what? It shouldn't be. Yeah, actually it's over there. So you can use this to drive it. So use the rotation of the joint to drive the blend shapes of the curve to make the eyelid follow. Okay. Let me go select the joint and Control Edge to hide it. Now let's move on to the cheek. The cheek is basically the same thing. I'm gonna grab that loop and then go modify, convert polygon edge to curve. Okay, and then I can simplify the curve by deleting some of the unnecessary vertices, and then also I'm gonna shape it to here instead, because I think that's the upper cheeks location. Okay. And then don't forget to rebuild the curve. Oh, also rename it. CRV, DRV, upper cheek. And then we need 3 joints only. Okay, 3 joints only. And then the name will be GT left upper. And then it's gonna be cheek band. Okay. Now the joint radius can actually be a bit bigger here. Let's change that back to 1, I think, or maybe 0.5. The locator size can be also 0.5. Okay, let's go create joints. Now that's our joints created properly with the curve and naming and grouping. Oh, did I rebuild? I think I didn't rebuild the curve, but you can also rebuild it later. So curve rebuild, because I want to make it simpler, only 3, only 1 actually instead, so apply. Okay, and the reason I do that is because I don't need too much movement on the on its upper cheek. Okay, so that should be good. So let's go grab the joints and then the skin. Do again underneath rigging, skin, add influence. Okay, same setting there, and skin weighting. Let's go to the 3 new joints we added in to the list, and then let's start adding the weighting. This one is gonna take care of that area. Maybe a bit up there. One of the things you can try is, if you want to be super in control, you can make that to take over the entire area first. The benefit of that is then you can let's see, this is the entire area you want to control. Then after that, you can grab you can go to the skin weighting, and then you can just right click and then lock inverse selection. Okay, that way you can only pen weighting on those 3, and the weighting will be all distributed to other joints from the one this one that is having, which means you will not destroy other weighting down the way, which kind of like give you a limitation too, because it gives you arrows. Okay, because the weighting cannot be changed literally over there. So I would say it has downsides, so I don't really lock it too much. If I'm really careful, I won't destroy anything. But for beginners, I think this is safer because you are not even being able to destroy anything because of the locking. Smooth. That's kind of smooth already. Okay. But anyway, I would actually unlock those ones and then actually start to paint it myself manually without having to deal with the weighting locking thing. Because the weight locking is actually not giving you quite nice results sometimes. But I do know some people use that. So there are always different ways. I'm just more like this simple way of just paint the weighting and not locking anyone. Some blending to the eyelid, it would be okay, but let's see how it looks like now. Okay, seems like the eyelid should have more control of the bottom. So let's go to the select influence and pen some of the weighting back for the eyelid. Okay, so now the eyelid having more control down there, so looks good. And then that should have some control on the top, on the cheek area too. I think they're taking too much control there. And I'm gonna give the eyelid more. Okay. Alright. Some of the weighting here is having very strong conflict. Gonna use the eyelid to even having more there to push them back. At some point, weight painting is like modeling. You're using the weighting to manipulate the geometry. All right. Okay, let me zero that out for the eyelid controller and also zero that out. Okay, now they shouldn't be controlling that too much. I'm gonna go pen skin weighting for that one. I'm gonna use subtraction here, so holding down control and then get rid of that, and also maybe those ones. Not that much there either. Okay, they're gonna be distributed to the weight holder and then the eyelids. Actually, to the weight holder more than the eyelid. I think that's okay. I don't want the eyelid to take too much. All right. So now let's do the controls. Oh, I think the lower, this one should have more control in here. So let me give it more, at least here in the middle. All right. So it's the same thing, just a corrective shape on it. Oh, sorry, a blend shape on it. It's called, this is gonna be called left upper cheek blend shapes. Okay, and then add one target called cheek up, or just up. I think up is good. Okay, and then we can grab those two vertices and then drag them up. Okay, and also forward a little bit. Oh, not that one actually. Go to component mode, so it's easier to just drag that. Okay, so that's up. Let's add a new target, drag the up down, and then for the new target, let's drag them down a little bit, and then also forward, because they're wrapping around the skeleton underneath there. You don't want it to destroy the volume of that. So going down a bit, and then going up. All right. Now, after that, we can now start to refine the weighting. Maybe give it more of here, because I don't quite like that weird arc out there. Okay. So seems like that one is going up too much. And let me use the band holder to push it back a little. Okay, just to get a smoother deformation. When you're doing the weighting, you want to look at the shape, not that. If you see it doesn't look right over here, but the shape is actually looks good. In rigging, the most important thing is never how smooth the weighting is. It's about the deformation. The shape is this thing you want to be judging or to be controlling the most rather than other things. So that's why sometimes my weighting looks not making any sense, but it gives me the shape I needed, and that's good enough. Okay. All right. So that's the cheek up, and then that's done. Let's create controllers for them. Again, it's just a cube there first to start with. So just drag it to where I want it to be. Call this cube JT left upper cheek band. Okay, and then do create the controller. All right, and then delete the cube, and then go start manipulating the controller. I think that's good enough. Okay, let's go to the animation key, stat driven key, stat, and our driver will be here. The driven one will be the curves blend shape. So let's call this down. Load driven, or selected and then load driven. The driver will be the translation Y, right? The driver attributes. The driven one will be the two blend shapes. Let's key them first. Drag the controller up, and then drag the up, key it, and drag the controller down, and then drag the down. Actually, not that much. Okay, and then key it again. So now we have this, but one little thing here is that, just like before, you want to flatten out the animation curve. So you want to go to the graph editor and then make that flat. You can also grab those and go curve, pre-infinity to circle with offset, post-infinity to circle with offset. And what that does is you can keep dragging it and it will just keep going. Okay. Maybe that's too much, but you know, you don't want the rigger to decide like how much you want the skin to go. That's the animator's job. So you don't want to give it limitation unless that makes perfect sense, like the eye. You don't want to go further than that. So maybe that's okay to have limitation, you know. But for the cheek, maybe not. Maybe the animator want to push it more. And how do you know how far it's actually needed to be pushed, right? You never know. So that's why you wanted to make it free, just like the eyebrow. We make it kind of go all the way up, even destroy the rig. That's okay. The animator knows that's wrong. You don't have to tell them that's wrong. Okay, so don't give them limitations on those things. All right. I think the weighting down there is a little bit creased, so I can do more tweaking on the weighting down there. Okay, looking good. So that's everything we did in class. Just do the same thing repeated on the eyelids and then on the upper cheek. Their creation process is almost exactly, I think it is exactly like the eyebrow. Okay, so I'm gonna venture more from there. I'm gonna create the curve for the left line and then the side of the nose. Okay, and those will be something I give you next class, so we don't have to repeat all those things, so we can focus on the mouse right away. For the upper cheek, but you don't have to do this for the assignment. Again, I think the purpose of teaching rigging, you know, for some people it's you know, be a rigger, right? For the majority of the students, it's make you understand how rig works, because understanding rig is having a big impact on your understanding of how Maya works. So I think it's valuable to learn rigging for everyone, but not to a very professional level, but you know, to a understanding level is my goal here. And I don't want you to spend like a ton of time and being frustrated doing rigging, because I know you got frustrated when you're doing rigging. That's not the point. Some people are just not meant to be rigger. It's too technical, and then it has little artistic stuff in it, which is not quite true, but still it's too technical for most of the art students. So anyway, so for the left line, this is the line I selected, you know, and then let's go create joints for it. It's gonna be called left JT left line. That's how I call it, but you can call it whatever. But maybe it's not the very proper naming, you know. But I think that makes sense. And then the joint radius will be 0.5. The joint locator size will be 0.5. I think that's good. Okay, and then let's create joints. Oh, I didn't select. I didn't create a curve yet. So convert that into a curve. Okay, do some refining. Like, I don't think I really need those vertices. And then of course do a rebuild would be nice. And the rebuilding, let's do this time maybe let's try 6. Okay, that looks good. You don't want to have too much reverses, that way it's hard to manipulate the curve, but you want to also make it to be able to represent the shape more or less. Alright, let's do create joints this time. Now we have those joints. Okay. And then let's grab the joints. Then the skin. Go rigging, skin. Add influence. Okay. I'm also gonna create one for the side of the nose. So that curve there. And then create create a curve from there. That curve will be called left CRV left nose side. Okay. This one is CRV, DRV, left line, side. Okay. And that one will also have only one joint on it, actually. Left nose, side, band, and then create joint. Okay. Now there is a little subtlety of the coding here. Okay. If you look at the coding, to make the value 1 work, it actually requires you to do more stuff. If you go to the actual coding there. Because if a equals to 1, my u value is just need to be 0.5, right? If it's not 1, then I'm calculating. But you see that if joint amount equals 1, and then 1 minus 1 equals 0, and you use 1.0 to subdivide by 0, that's invalid in mathematics, undefined value here. But so that's why when it equals to 1, you have to have a specific condition for that. Okay, just a little subtlety for that part. Okay, now that one will be also added as the influence. Okay, so we have the area around the nose and the side of the left line here. I'll set it up, and we haven't done anything in the middle yet, so we need 1 there and 1 there, and maybe 3 on the top too, but let's do the majority ones for now. Let's go pen skin weighting. So that one is gonna be there. Okay. Oh, you want to unlock those, of course. And then 4 will be this portion. 3 will be this portion. 2 will be that. And then 1 will be this. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that way we have the control of this part now by dragging the vertices or changing the shape of this curve. Yeah. Let's also paint the nose. It's gonna take care of the side of the nose. You never know how if they're gonna work by looking at the weighting you're having, because you never know how they're gonna deform when you actually deform it. So at the beginning of painting the weighting here, you can actually go really rough. You don't have to be, super clean, nice and, smooth, because you never know if they're gonna work, and you never know if you need to actually tweak them. So why are you make them so nice? Meaning that we create the controller first, and then we refine the weighting. So let's do that. For now, for this area, all we need is 1 controller. It's actually just for the side of the nose. Okay. So let me go create a nest cube there. Let's call it JT left nose side band. Okay, and then create controllers. Let's use circle again, and delete the curve, and then select the circle, go start. The reason I use start there is the start does one thing that I needed, which is component mode. Okay, of course you can just turn on component mode to do that too. That's essentially what that does. What that does. Okay, I just make a shortcut for that to make my life a bit easier. Okay, so that's my controller here. All right. So the controller will do 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and it needs to be used to drive the blend shape on the curves. So let me do that here. I actually need to do blend shapes on both of those. Let's do that on the left one first. Oh. So left line, blend shapes. Okay, and then your target is gonna be up. For the up, just gonna drag those up, maybe that one up a little bit. Oh, let's also change the name to nose side up. That's more specific. Okay. Oh, I'm dragging the joints. Shouldn't do that. So there should be all kind of sliding up a little bit. Okay. And then we can also, because it's pushing the tissue here, so this one also need a new target, and oh, let's name this back to nose setup. Let's also name this one nose setup too for the cheek, upper cheek curve, and then let's also drag it up and maybe forward to maintain the volume. So I should go to component mode to avoid dragging the joint instead. Okay. And we also need the side of the nose curve. Okay, so that one, oh, forget to rebuild it. So let me do, oh, I cannot do that now, so just make sure you do that. But it shouldn't be hard because it's only on one joint. So I'm just drag every vertex up. This is gonna be left nose side blend shapes. Okay. So those for this one, I'm just gonna drag it up, maybe rotate it this way. Okay, so we have the side nose up. That involves actually 3 curves. Oh, I haven't done the blend shape yet. Let me actually go back. So I need a blend shape before I do that. The blend shape will have the same name, nose setup. Drag it up and then rotate it this way. Okay. Now let's grab all 3, okay, and then select the blend shape and go to the set driven keys, which is set, and the driven one will be those. And you see why I named them the same name, because now I can select them all the same, select them all together here. Okay. Also drag those down. The driver will be the controller, of course, and it's gonna be translation Y to drive those. Key them. Select that and drag it up, and then select those 3, and then let's drag the nose setup. And then key it again. Now I have this. Okay, so the difference here is that the side of the nose is controlling all 3 curves to drag them out, because it's needed to actually affect all those things. So that's why we needed that. Okay, so the other things are the same. I'm not gonna waste time to do that. But you see the only difference here is you're driving 3 curves instead. So what I need you to do is just the eyelid and the upper cheek. Do that on the other side, and then you don't need to do this, but you can surely try that. But if you're not really into rigging, I'm not pushing you to do everything here. But I will give you this next class, and then we will move on to rig the mouse. Okay, so that's for today, and thanks for watching.